For 30 years, I gave my son everything, every penny, every dream, every sleepless night. Yet he stared me down and spat, "You're nothing to us," kicking me out. Everyone whispered, I was broken. But in court I just smiled, pulled out a yellow document and handed it to the judge. When he read it, my son screamed and I felt justice. Finally, stir. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The keys hit the glass table with a clang sharp as a gunshot. Liam paced the living room, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. "You think we owe you something?" He spat, his voice slicing through the air. "You're nothing to us." I stood frozen, my fingers tied around the handle of a small suitcase. The words cut deeper than I could have imagined. Each syllable, a blade twisting in my chest. 30 years, every penny, every dream, every sleepless night poured into him. And now this Olivia leaned against the armrest of a white leather sofa. Her arms crossed, a faint smirk, curling her lips. "David, you don't want to drag this out," she said. Her tone smooth as silk, but cold as the marble countertop behind her. "It's time to go." The room gleamed with wealth, crystal chandelier floor, toe-ceiling windows, a wine glass tipped over its red stain seeping into the cream rug. This house, my house, the one I'd signed over to Liam 5 years ago, felt like a stranger's. Now I'd given it to him, thinking it was love. Foolish Liam. I said, my voice low, trembling despite myself. "I gave you everything." He stopped pacing, his wedding ring glinting as he pointed at the door. "And I'm done carrying you. Get out." Olivia's hand twitched, betraying a flicker of unease, but her eyes stayed locked on me, daring me to crumble. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him remember the boy who'd clung to me after his mother died. But that boy was gone. In his place stood a man I didn't recognize. His face twisted with contempt, my hand brushed my coat pocket, feeling the crinkle of an old envelope. "Not yet," I thought, "not here." I lifted the suitcase light, holding just a few shirts, a faded photo of my late wife Mary, and that envelope. The weight of it grounded me, a reminder of something I couldn't name yet. "David," Olivia said. Stepping closer, her perfume, sharp and expensive. "Don't make a scene, it's undignified." I met her gaze, my jaw tight. "You'll regret this," I said, not sure if I meant it as a threat or a plea. Liam laughed, a harsh bark. "Regret? You're the one who'll be sorry, old man." I turned to the door, my heart pounding so loud. I barely heard Olivia's final jab. "Take care, David." The door loomed ahead. Heavy oak with brass fittings, a barrier between the life I built and the void waiting outside. I opened it. Cold, wet air hit my face, the rain already soaking through my thin coat. "Liam," I said, pausing, not looking back. "You're wrong about me." He didn't answer. The door slammed shut behind me, the sound echoing in my bones. Rain pelted the street, blurring the glow of a distant street lamp. I stood there, suitcase in hand, no car, no plan, nowhere to go. Everyone would whisper. I was broken, poor David, discarded like trash. But as the rain stung my skin, something stirred inside me. Not pain, not yet, an ember small but alive, flickering in the dark. I stepped forward, the suitcase, heavier now, and let the night swallow me. The mattress sagged beneath me, creaking with every shift. I sat in the dim light of a single bulb, listening to the neighbors' muffled shouts through the paper-thin walls of my new apartment in Lent, a far cry from the house in West Hills. Once I'd pictured a different life. Travel, laughter, Mary by my side. Now this, a cracked coffee mug, a wobbly table, and silence that pressed against my skull. I unzipped the suitcase, pulling out a faded photo. Mary smiled in it, her hair catching the sunlight. Liam tucked against her side. He was 6, then, all gaped grins and sticky fingers. I'd carried him on my shoulders, promising him the world. After she died in '95, that promise became my life. I worked double shifts, skipped vacations, sold my dreams of Europe to pay for his summer camps. I remembered the stack of bills on our old kitchen table, the way I'd hide them from him, saying, "We're fine, kid." The apartment smelled of mildew. A drip from the faucet punctuated the quiet. I set the photo down, my hands shaking. Had I loved him too much? Was that my mistake? I gave him everything, college tuition, the down payment for that house, even my pride when I signed it over, and for what you're nothing to us. His voice echoed in my head, sharp as the day he said it. I dug deeper into the suitcase, past a worn sweater, and found it the envelope, yellowed edges frayed. My old address scrolled in my handwriting. I'd kept it all these years tucked away like a secret I wasn't ready to face. My fingers traced the seal. Not yet, I wasn't sure what it meant, only that it mattered in my mind. I saw Liam at 16, begging me to visit his college campus. "You'll come, right, Dad?" I'd smiled, knowing I couldn't afford the trip. "Sure, son," another lie to keep him safe. Now I wondered what he'd say if I asked, "Why, Liam, what didn't I give you?" The phone buzzed. On the table, Liam's name flashed. My thumb hovered over the screen, then pressed, decline. I didn't want his apologies. If he even meant to offer them Olivia's voice too, I could imagine. "David, be reasonable." I turned the phone off, the silence louder. Now I stood pacing the small room. The floorboards groaned. I thought of Mary's coffee mug, the one she'd hold every morning, its chip from when Liam dropped it. As a toddler, I'd kept it even after she was gone. Now it was in a box somewhere, like everything else I'd lost the weeks since that night blurred together. I'd found this place, a studio, behind a nail salon, cheap and anonymous. I'd spent days unpacking, avoiding mirrors, avoiding myself. But tonight something shifted. I set the envelope on the table, its weight heavier than the suitcase. It wasn't just paper, it was a piece of me, a piece I'd forgotten. I sank back onto the bed, staring at the ceiling's water stains. Liam thought he'd won, that I'd fade away. He was wrong. Anger, sharp and unfamiliar, coiled in my chest, growing like weeds through cracked pavement. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew I wasn't done. I slammed the library door harder than I meant to, the sound swallowed by the hum of Portland's public library. My anger needed an outlet, and the weight of it pushed me forward past rows of bookshelves, smelling of dust and old paper. 2 weeks since Liam's betrayal, and the pain hadn't dulled, but something else was waking up, a need to fight back. I dropped into a chair at a long oak table. Legal books piled high, property law contracts, inheritance, words that felt foreign but necessary. I'd signed the house over to Liam, but there had to be a way to reclaim something, anything. My pen scratched notes. Each word, a small rebellion against the man who'd called me nothing. "You look like you're at war with the world," a voice said. I glanced up. A woman, mid-50s, stood across the table. Her glasses perched low on her nose. She held a thick book, her coat slightly damp from the morning drizzle. Her eyes were sharp but kind, like she'd seen too much to judge. "I might be," I said, managing a half-smile. She slid into the chair opposite, setting her book down. "Elon Marshall, I'm a lawyer and you look like you need one." "David Clark," I said, "I'm figuring things out." She leaned forward, her silver earring catching the light. "Figuring out usually means trouble. Care to share?" I hesitated, then let it spill. "My son kicked me out, took the house I gave him, said I'm nothing." The words burned, but saying them felt like shedding weight. Elon's jaw tightened. "Sons can be ungrateful, but you're stronger than you think." She pushed a book toward me. "Fundamentals of Property Law. Start here. It's not as dry as it looks." We talked for an hour, the library's quiet buzz fading around us. She shared her own scars, a divorce, a daughter she hadn't seen in years. "I know what it's like to lose family," she said, "but you don't have to lose yourself." Her words hit hard. I thought of the envelope still tucked in my apartment drawer. It was more than paper. It was a key, maybe, to justice. How do I fight this? I asked. Find their weaknesses. Elin said, her voice steady. People like your son, they're careless, arrogant. Use that. We moved to a nearby cafe. The air thick, with coffee and rain. My phone buzzed. Liam again. I ignored it. The screen's glow a reminder of his voice, his cruelty. Elin noticed but didn't ask. Instead she sketched out ideas. Liens, fraud claims, old contracts. You need evidence. She said, something they can't ignore. I nodded, my fist clenching under the table. Liam thought he'd crushed me. Olivia thought she'd outsmarted me. They were wrong. I wasn't the broken man they imagined. I was David Clark, and I'd make them see it. Back in my apartment. The bulb flickered as I sat at the wobbly table. The envelope lay there, its edges worn but intact. I didn't open it, not yet, but for the first time in weeks I felt it, a pulse of hope, steady and real. I could win this, I would. I sat at the library table, gripping my pen like a weapon. The hope I'd felt last night burned brighter, now urging me forward. Today I'd start fighting back. Elin slid a stack of papers across the table, her eyes sharp behind her glasses. This is where we begin, she said, tapping a news article about Liam's real estate firm. The headline mentioned client complaints, small cracks in his perfect world. We'd spent weeks digging, meeting in quiet corners of Portland's libraries and cafes. The library smelled of old books and faint coffee from a vending machine. Its hum grounded me as I scanned documents, my fingers smudging ink. Liam's life laid bare in public records, and social media revealed a man drunk on arrogance. Elin pointed to a post on Olivia's profile, a polished photo at a gala. Her smile tight. She's obsessed with control. Elin said, that's her weakness. I nodded, scribbling notes. Liam's firm was under scrutiny for shady deals, the kind that could ruin him if someone pushed hard enough. His ego blinded him to the risks. He thought he was untouchable. Olivia meanwhile lived for her reputation. I imagined her in a boardroom, her voice crisp, her hands trembling if a scandal broke, one misstep and her carefully built image would shatter. Found something, Elin said, sliding her laptop toward me. A forum post from a disgruntled client accused Liam of inflating property values. If we can tie this to him, it's leverage. Her voice was steady, but her fingers drummed the table, betraying her excitement. I leaned back, my chair creaking. He's careless, always was. I thought of the envelope in my apartment drawer. Its weight, a quiet promise. It could wait for now. We needed more names, dates, proof. Elin's gaze softened. You remind me of myself, you know. After my divorce, she paused, twisting her coffee cup. He took everything, my home, my confidence. I rebuilt it, but it cost me my daughter. She doesn't call anymore. Her voice cracked and I saw the woman behind the lawyer, raw and real. I'm sorry. I said, my throat tight. I know what it's like to lose family. She waved it off, but her eyes held mine. That's why we're doing this, David, not just for you, for everyone they've hurt. We moved to a cafe. The air thick, with espresso and rain outside, Portland streets glistened, reflecting neon signs. I spotted Olivia across the street, her coat pristine, her stride purposeful. My pulse spiked. I ducked behind the window, my heart hammering. She didn't see me, but the sight of her so close, so unaware, lit a fire in me. Back at the library, we pieced together more: a name, Marcus Reed, a client. Liam had swindled a date, a deal closed last year suspiciously overvalued. Each fact was a thread and I was weaving a net. Elin sketched a timeline, her pen scratching like a battle plan. We're close, she said, but we need to be surgical. I thought of Liam laughing in his glass-walled office, Olivia adjusting her pearls before a meeting. They thought I was gone erased. My hand tightened around the paper. Now a list of their vulnerabilities. For the first time, I felt like the hunter, not the prey. At home, I spread the notes on my table, the bulb overhead, flickering, Liam's arrogance, Olivia's fear of shame. They were exposed, fragile. My finger traced the list, stopping at Marcus Reed's name. It was time to act. I hunched over a public computer in the library, the letter glowing on the screen. My fingers buzzed, poised above the keyboard, as if pulling a trigger. The words were careful, vague enough to avoid suspicion, sharp enough to wound concerns about fraudulent practices. At Clark Reilly. It began listing deals tied to Liam, hinting at Marcus Reed's complaint. My heart thudded. Was this too far? He was my son. I closed my eyes and Liam's voice echoed, "You're nothing to us." The memory of that night, rain, betrayal. The slam of the door pushed my doubts aside. I hit send. The screen blinked and the letter was gone, racing toward Liam's world like a stone through glass. The library was silent, save for the click of keyboards and a distant cough. I wiped my brow, the sweat cold against my skin. I'd used an anonymous email, a public terminal, no trace. Still, my hands shook as I logged out, glancing over my shoulder. The weight of what I'd done settled in heavy but thrilling. Elin met me at a cafe, her coat damp from the September drizzle. "It's done?" she asked, her voice low. I nodded, sliding into the booth. "Sent this morning," she leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Good, that's a clean hit, but they'll push back. David, be ready." Her warning hung between us, but I saw pride in her smile. I imagined Liam in his office. His tie loosened, shouting at his assistant as emails piled up, clients calling colleagues, whispering. Olivia would be worse. Her icy calm, cracking her voice sharp as she hissed. "You've ruined us, Liam." I pictured their fight, her heels clicking as she paced him, slamming a fist on the desk, promising to fix it. But he couldn't not. "This time you're quiet," Elin said, stirring her coffee. "Second thoughts." I shook my head. "No, they deserve this." But my voice wavered. I'd raised him, loved him. Now I was tearing him down. The thought twisted in my gut, but I pushed it away. He'd made his choice. Days later I found it a news brief online. Clark Reilly faces inquiry over alleged fraud. My pulse raced. It worked. Liam's name wasn't mentioned, not yet, but the noose was tightening. I leaned back in my apartment, the chair creaking, and allowed myself a smile. The cracked mug on my table seemed less lonely now. Elin called that night. "You see the article?" Her voice was sharp, excited. "They're scrambling. Keep your head down, though. People like them don't lose quietly." "I know." I said, my fingers tracing the edge of my phone. The envelope in my drawer crossed my mind. A safety net, maybe if things went wrong. But for now this was enough. I'd struck first and it felt good. I refreshed the news site. The screens glow harsh in the dim room. Another article, more details, clients pulling out a regulator's name attached. My smile faded, replaced by annoying unease. I'd started this, but where would it end outside? The rain drummed harder and my phone lit up with the article's update. Something cold coiled in my chest. They'd fight back. Soon rain hammered my apartment window, but the unease from the news clung tighter. Liam and Olivia wouldn't crumble easily. I knew that the article about the inquiry had spread, and with it my sense of victory soured into dread. They'd be hunting now, sniffing for whoever lit the match. I checked the locks again, the bolt cold under my fingers. Elin called me to a park. Away from prying eyes. The air smelled of wet leaves and her scarf fluttered. As she spoke, someone's asking questions. She said, her voice low. A man was at the cafe yesterday watching me. Private detective. Maybe her eyes were steady, but her hands clutched her bag too tightly. My stomach dropped because of the letter. Likely she glanced around the park, empty, save for a jogger in the distance. They're scared, David, that's good, but it means they're dangerous. I imagined Liam in his sleek office, hiring a detective, his jaw tight with rage. Olivia would be colder. Her orders precise. Find who did this or we're done. I could see her now, her nails tapping, threatening to walk away if he failed. Their perfect life was fraying and I'd pulled the first thread. But at what cost? We walked, our shoes squishing on the path. Elon's voice softened. I've been here before, you know. My ex hired a guy to dig up dirt during the divorce, found nothing, but it kept me up nights. She paused, her breath, visible in the chill. We'll outsmart them, we have to. I nodded, but fear nodded at me. What if they traced the letter? What if they found Elon? The envelope in my drawer flashed in my mind. My insurance maybe, but not enough, not yet. That night I sifted through memories of Liam. He was 15, caught stealing cash from my wallet. I didn't do it. Dad, he'd said, his eyes wide, lying without blinking. I forgave him then, believing he'd grow out of it. Now I saw the truth. That boy became the man who threw me out. The thought hardened me, but it hurt too. Elon and I met again, this time in a crowded diner. The clatter of plates masking our words. They're closing in, she said, sliding a napkin with a name, Victor Clean, private investigator. He's good but sloppy. Ask the librarian about me. What do we do? My voice was tight, my coffee untouched. Stay invisible, she said. No more public computers and keep your phone off when you're not using it. Her hand touched mine. Brief but firm. We're smarter than them, David. Remember that I tried to believe her. But back home, the apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in. I hid my notes in a shoe box, my hands unsteady. The street outside was quiet, too quiet. I thought of Liam's lies, Olivia's cold smile. They were circling and I was the prey. Then my phone rang, an unknown number. I froze, staring at the screen. It stopped, but the silence was worse. A creak came from outside, sharp against the rain. My fists clenched, my heart pounding. They were close. I had to move faster. I stood in the park clutching an umbrella, its rib straining against the November wind. Last night's creak outside my window had kept me awake, my pulse racing at every shadow. But today I was ready. The game had begun and I wasn't backing down. Elin sat on a peeling bench, her scarf loose, her notebook open. We need to be precise, she said, her pen scratching a timeline. One wrong move and they'll pounce. The park smelled of wet leaves and distant wood smoke. A dog barked somewhere, its echo swallowed by the drizzle. I pulled my coat tighter. My own notes tucked in a battered journal, the document. I said, my voice low. It's our edge. Elin glanced up, her eyes narrowing. The original deed. You're sure it holds up? I nodded. There was a mistake when I signed the house over. It's still mine legally. I didn't explain more. Not yet. The deed hidden in my apartment was my ace, a yellowed contract that could unravel Liam's world. But we had to play it right. She leaned forward, her breath clouding in the chill. Then we file a claim quietly, but we need a distraction, something to keep them off balance. Her pen tapped the page, more anonymous tips, complaints to Liam's regulators, whispers to stir the pot. Hit them where they're weak, she said. Liam's ego, Olivia's image. I scribbled her ideas, my hands steady, despite the cold. I wasn't the man they'd thrown out anymore. I was a strategist building a trap, but a flicker of doubt nodded at me. What if this changes me, Elin? What if I lose myself? She smirked, closing her notebook. If we mess this up, I'll buy you coffee at the worst diner in Portland deal. Her humor broke the tension and I laughed. The sound foreign in my throat. She was more than an ally, now a friend, someone who saw me when I'd forgotten myself. We mapped it out, a letter to the city about Liam's deals, vague but pointed, sent from a burner email, a legal draft, hidden for now, to reclaim the house. Each step was a brick in the wall I was building. I thought of Liam's smug grin, Olivia's cold stare. They'd underestimated me. That was their mistake. A man jogged past, his hood up, and my heart skipped. I scanned the park, half expecting Liam's detective. "You're jumpy," Elin said, her voice calm. "He's just a runner." Stay focused, but her hand tightened on her bag, betraying her own nerves. I flipped through my journal, the pages filled with dates, names, weaknesses, Liam's fraud, Olivia's fear of shame. They were exposed and I held the strings. "We're close," I said, my voice firm. "I can feel it." Elin nodded. "Standing we are, but this is chess. David, one move at a time." She tucked her scarf, her silhouette sharp against the gray sky. I folded my notes, the paper crisp in my hands. It wasn't just a plan, it was power, something I hadn't felt in years back home. The apartment was cold, the radiator hissing. I slid the notes into my pocket, their weight grounding me. The deed waited in its drawer, but this was bigger. Now the game was on and I was ready to play. I opened the news site and there it was: Liam Clark, my son, the man I built, crumbling. The headline screamed, "Clark, really fined for shady practices." My chest tightened, not with fear but with a strange, sharp joy. I leaned back in my apartment, the chair creaking, the dim lamp, casting shadows on the cracked walls. He was falling and I pushed him. The article detailed it all: fines, lost clients, regulators circling. Liam's name wasn't front and center, but it didn't need to be. His colleagues would whisper, his phone would go silent. I imagined him in his sleek office, his tie undone, shouting at an empty room as deals slipped away. Olivia would be worse, her voice slicing through their house. "You're dragging us down, Liam. Fix this or I'm gone." He'd beg, his arrogance cracking, but she'd turn away, her heels clicking on their marble floor. Elin met me at a cafe, the air thick, with cinnamon and steam. "You saw it?" she asked, sliding into the booth. Her coat damp from December's rain. I nodded, my coffee untouched. "It's working." But guilt twisted in me. I saw Liam at 8, his arms around my neck after a school play, promising to make me proud. Now I was tearing him apart. "He was my son," I said, my voice low. Elin corrected, her eyes, soft but firm. "He's still your son, but he chose this fight." She sipped her tea, her fingers steady. "He might suspect you, David, be careful." I thought of the deed locked away. It was my trump card. But this moment, Liam's world shaking, was enough for now. I remembered him at 16, caught stealing from my wallet, swearing he'd be better. "I'll make you proud, Dad," he'd said, his eyes wet. I believed him. I was wrong. My phone buzzed, Liam's name. My thumb hovered, then pressed, decline. The screen went dark, but my heart raced. He was reaching out, maybe desperate, maybe angry. I didn't care, not anymore. Elin leaned forward. "You hit hard, but he's not done. People like him fight dirty when they're cornered." Her voice was a warning, but I saw excitement in her eyes, a mirror of my own. I checked the locks that night. The bolt cold under my fingers. The apartment smelled of stale coffee. The radiator clanking. I pulled up the article again. The screen's glow harsh. More details: a client suing, a partner pulling out. I smiled, but it faded. Liam wasn't just losing money, he was losing himself, and I'd done it. Another call came, Liam's name flashing. I shut the phone off. The silence heavy. He was close, too close. I felt it in my bones. He knew I was behind this. The next move wasn't mine alone anymore. I checked my phone. No calls. The quiet was deceptive, but I knew Olivia was next. Liam's fall had cracked their world, and now it was her turn. January's cold seeped into my apartment, the radiator barely keeping up. I sat at my table. A new plan forming, my fingers tapping the edge of a notebook. She'd thought me weak, a shadow to erase. She'd learn otherwise. Elin and I had worked fast. Using a public library computer, we'd crafted a letter, anonymous, precise, detailing Olivia's sleight of hand with her company's marketing budgets. Small overcharges hidden in reports funneled to personal accounts, enough to stall her promotion, maybe end her career. I sent it to her firm's ethics board, my heart pounding as the screen confirmed delivery. It was done. I imagined her now in her glass-walled office. Her perfect smile faltering. As her boss called her in. She'd snap at colleagues. Her voice shrill, her control slipping at home. She'd turn on, Liam. Her words venomous. This is your fault, Liam. Your weakness is ruining us. He'd fire back his voice, not me, Olivia, someone's after us. Their marriage, built on ambition, was splintering and I held the hammer. Elin met me in a diner, her face drawn. The letter hit, she said, sliding a news clipping across the table. Her firm's investigating. She's on thin ice. Her voice was steady, but her eyes darted to the door, wary of shadows. I leaned back, the vinyl booth squeaking, good. But my triumph was laced with caution. Olivia wasn't Liam. She'd fight smarter, harder. I remembered meeting her years ago at Liam's engagement party. Her handshake was firm, her smile polished, but her eyes were ice, dismissing me as nothing. That memory fueled me now. You're enjoying this, Elin said, half smiling. But she's dangerous when cornered like a snake. Let her try. I said, my voice harder than I felt. The deed, my secret weapon, waited in its drawer. I didn't need it. Yet Olivia's fall was my focus and it felt right. I saw her once from across the street, her coat buttoned tight, her face pale, as she hurried into her office. Her stride was off. Hurried, not the confident glide. I knew. I stayed hidden, my pulse racing. She was cracking, and I'd done it. That night I read the news again. Marketing exec faces budget probe. The headline glowed my trophy, but Elin's warning echoed, she was dangerous. I thought of Liam's calls unanswered and wondered if they were talking plotting. They weren't done. I locked my door, the bolt clicking. The apartment was dark, the air heavy with winter's bite. I checked the news one last time. Then froze, a car idled outside, its headlights off, a black shape. Against the street's glow. Someone was watching. My hands clenched, my breath short. They were coming for me. The car was gone from outside my building, but the feeling of being watched clung to me like damp air. February's chill seeped through my coat as I walked to the mailbox, my breath clouding. A thick envelope waited inside. My name printed in stark black ink. My hands shook as I tore it open, a court summons. Liam and Olivia were suing me for defamation, claiming I'd spread lies to ruin them. They painted me as a bitter old man. Unhinged by rejection, my stomach churned. They wanted to bury me. I paced my apartment, the floorboards creaking. The summons crumpled in my fist. The radiator hissed, but I felt only cold. I imagined Liam in a tailored suit, dictating to his lawyer with a smirk. Olivia would be sharper, her voice low, urging them to crush me. He's nothing, she'd say. Just like that night, my fear spiked, but something else stirred, defiance. They wouldn't win, not this time. Elin met me at the library. Her coat dusted with rain. "They're desperate," she said, scanning the summons. Her voice was calm, but her fingers tapped the table. "This is a bluff, David. They're scared and they should be." She pushed her glasses up, her eyes fierce. "We have the deed, we'll hit back harder." I sank into a chair. The library's hum fading. What if we lose? My voice cracked, betraying the panic I tried to bury. She leaned forward, her hand grazing mine. "We won't. That contract is ironclad. They underestimated you, and that's their mistake." Her confidence steadied me like a rope in a storm. She was more than my lawyer. Now she was my anchor. We spent hours strategizing, papers spread across the table. The deed locked in my apartment was our weapon. A legal error that kept the house mine. Elin drafted a response, her pen scratching like a battle cry. "We'll file quietly," she said. "Let them think they're winning." I nodded. My fear easing, replaced by a quiet resolve. I wasn't their victim anymore. I remembered Liam at 16, caught lying about a stolen car. "I messed up, Dad," he'd said, tears in his eyes. I hugged him, believing love would fix him. I was wrong. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who'd spit in my face. The memory hardened me, but it stung too outside. I spotted Liam across the street. His phone pressed to his ear, his face drawn. My pulse raced. I ducked behind a corner, my breath shallow. He didn't see me, but his presence felt like a warning. They were close, too close. Back home I checked the locks, the bolt cold under my fingers. The summons lay on my table, a challenge I wouldn't refuse. I thought of the deed waiting in its drawer. It was my shield, my sword. I stood before the mirror, my reflection sharper than it had been in months. The man staring back wasn't broken. He was ready. I slipped the old envelope into my pocket. Its way, a promise, tomorrow everything would change. I stood before the mirror in a worn suit. The fabric tight across my shoulders, but the envelope in my pocket gave me strength. The courthouse loomed ahead. Its stone stepped slick with March rain. My heart pounded, but I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Today I'd end this. The deed, that yellowed contract, was my truth, and Liam and Olivia would face it. The courtroom smelled of polish and dust, its wooden benches creaking under the weight of spectators. Liam sat at the plaintiff's table, his jaw tight, his suit pristine. Olivia beside him adjusted her scarf. Her face, a mask of composure. But I saw the tension in her eyes, the way her fingers gripped her purse. They thought they'd won before we'd even started. Elin squeezed my arm. Her voice, a whisper. "You've got this, David." Her calm grounded me. Her presence a reminder of how far we'd come. The judge, a stern woman with gray hair, called the room to order. My summons for defamation was their weapon, but I had a better one. Their lawyer spoke first. His voice smooth, accusing me of lies of spite. Liam nodded along, his gaze flicking to me, daring me to break. Olivia's lips twitched a faint smirk. I stayed still, my hand steady. Then it was our turn. Elin rose. Her tone sharp but measured. "Your Honor, we have evidence that changes everything." She nodded to me. I stood my legs firm and handed the judge the deed. The paper was heavy. Its ink faded but clear. "This is the original contract for the house," I said, my voice steady. "It was never properly transferred. The property is mine." The room stilled. The judge adjusted her glasses, reading. Liam leaned forward, his face reening. "That's a lie." He shouted, his voice cracking. "He's making it up." Olivia's hand shot to his arm, her nails digging in, but her eyes were wide, her composure gone. The judge raised a hand, silencing him. She read on her brow, furrowing. I remembered signing that deed years ago, thinking it was for Liam's future. I trusted him, loved him. Now that same paper was my victory. A twist of fate. I hadn't foreseen, Mr. Clark. The judge said, looking at Liam. This document is valid. The transfer was incomplete. Gasps rippled through the room. Liam stood his chair, scraping his voice a snarl. No, he can't do this. Olivia's face drained of color, her purse slipping to the floor. She whispered something. Her voice lost in the chaos. Elin leaned close, her breath warm. You did it, David. I nodded, but my triumph was quiet. I'd won, but the cost was heavy. Liam's rage, Olivia's collapse. They were my doing. Yet as I watched them unravel the pain of that night, their betrayal, their cruelty eased. The judge banged her gavel, dismissing their claim. I stood my legs steady and walked out. The air crisp and sharp. Elin followed, her smile wide. I felt lighter, freer, but questions lingered. What now? I touched the envelope in my pocket. It's work done, the future waited, and I wasn't sure where it led. I stepped out of the courthouse and the world felt lighter. The March air sharp. With possibility, the judge's ruling had come. A week later the house was mine. The deed upheld. Liam and Olivia's empire, built on greed and betrayal, had crumbled. Their wealth, their status, their marriage, all gone. I'd won. But the victory wasn't just the house, it was me reclaimed from the ashes of their cruelty. Yet, standing there, I wondered where to go. Next June's sun warmed Portland streets. As I walked through the old house one last time, the floors creaked, the air thick with memories. Liam's laughter as a boy, Mary's voice calling from the kitchen. I ran my hand along the banister. It would smooth. From years of touch. This place had been my heart, but now it felt like chains. I called a realtor that day, signing papers to sell it. The pen felt light, the act of release. I didn't need these walls anymore. Elin met me at a cafe. Her scarf bright against the summer light. You're free now, she said, spreading a map across the table, Paris or Rome. Her laugh was warm, her eyes bright with mischief. We'd grown close, our friendship, a gift I hadn't expected. She'd saved me, not just in court but in spirit. Pulling me from the dark, I sipped my coffee. The bitterness familiar, but softer now. Both, I said, grinning. Europe, my dream buried for 30 years, was alive again. I remembered Mary, her hand in mine. Her voice soft. Live, David, she'd said before she died, don't stop. I'd failed her then, pouring everything into Liam. But now I was ready. Her photo, now in a new frame, sat on my table in a small, bright apartment. I'd rented a clean start. The weeks after the trial had been quiet, news trickled in. Liam's firm collapsed, his clients gone, Olivia's career imploded, her name tainted. I imagined them fighting, their voices sharp, their love, if it ever was love, shattered. I felt no joy, only closure. They'd made their choices and I'd made mine. I sold the house for a good price, enough to fund my travels and more. The money felt secondary. The freedom was everything. Elin and I planned our trip, poring over guidebooks, laughing over bad French phrases. She'd visit her daughter first, try to mend that bridge. I hoped she would. She deserved it. My new apartment smelled of fresh paint, its windows catching the morning sun. I walked through it, my steps light, and found Mary's photo on the shelf. I'm living now. I whispered, my throat tight. Justice had been bitter, but it had freed me. I wasn't the man who'd stood in the rain, broken and lost. I was David Clark, and I was whole. I stood at my new doorstep, a plane ticket in my hand. The paper was crisp, its promise vast. Paris waited, then Rome. Then, wherever I chose, the sun warmed my face and I smiled. The future opened before me. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.